We'll go in and say, this is how you fix it. And we charge them a fee. And if you want, we'll help you implement the change in the impact. And so if let's say it's helping them save money, if we go in and save them $5 million, we might get 10% of that back. So we would make $500,000. So you can see if we had an hourly rate, it would take you a long time to make $500,000. This is where you're providing huge value. You saved your client $5 million. It's huge. Your payment is in line with it and still small. And they wouldn't have had that 5 million without you helping them implement it.
My guest today is Nicole Serena. She's a very successful entrepreneur who figured out how to restructure, how to get paid as a consultant so she can get paid upfront and on an ongoing basis. This is genius. She calls it the big head and long tail. She also shares her wisdom about conquering imposter syndrome, something I know I have struggled with, and so have a lot of my students. She talks about what she would have done differently if she had to do it all over again, and an amazing process to let your mind provide you answers while you sleep. You're going to love this episode. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about her. Nicole is the founder of PSP Solutions. That's a strategy consultancy for transforming how patient support programs deliver access, accountability, and long-term value in the pharmaceutical industry. And yes, we do talk a little bit about Big Pharma. With over 30 years of experience and a portfolio that spans more than 35 manufacturers across therapeutic areas, she brings deep expertise in financial reconciliation, launch execution, risk governance, and stakeholder alignment. That's a lot of big words, but she is a bulldozer. She even says she's kind of like a tank, that if there are obstacles in the way, she will break through and find a way. She's known for building scalable systems and partnerships that future-proof patient access while driving operational efficiency. Whether she's advising top-tier brands or leading strategic redesigns, Nicole brings a data-driven approach with a deep commitment to sustainable, human-centered innovation. Well, Nicole, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks, Matt. Excited to chat with you.
You have an amazing background. I've seen you speak, and I was very impressed by your level of success. And I know that we're going to get to that, but I want to start back in the early days. How did you get started?
Great question. So I was on the corporate side in the pharmaceutical industry for many years. And in parallel, we have a family consulting business that my husband has run. And a point in his career, he became a volunteer firefighter and found the passion and a profession, and he ended up going full time. And so there was a pivotal moment of, do we retire the consulting company or who's going to run it? And it had slowed down because he was focused somewhere else. I saw a gap in an expertise of mine in the corporate environment. And so I kind of took that leap of faith, left my corporate role and a very comfortable pension plan to start and rebuild our consulting agency in a new direction in an area that I felt was an important gap in the market, but also at the end of the day helps patients and patients to access treatment and medication.
You said you were in pharmaceuticals in
Yes.
before that. So Big Pharma has gotten a bad rap. You were in
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals. What do you have to say about that? Did you see things, hear things? What were you doing?
Yeah, it's a very regulated industry. And part of that is, you can't speak to the public on all the time to what they say. And I love because every novel, like Big Pharma is always the bad guy. And it's not that they're perfect, and there have been many issues in it. In the area I worked in, it was very much on helping patients access the medication. So I would say the majority of the time, the work I did, I saw the positive effect it would help on patients and sometimes the struggle that families would have trying to get treatment, whether it's for their children, themselves, their parents. So I think I like to say I lived on the good side of pharma. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So you said that you saw a gap. Tell me more about that gap. What was the gap? What was your husband doing? And tell me more about that. Let's unpack that.
Yeah. So his was when we are consulting agency, it's called Waldron and Associates. He was more of that traditional corporate commercial agency doing consulting management work, more on the commercial ad agency side. Throughout my career, I was in sales and marketing. I went into corporate affairs, trade relations, and then I became in patient access, which was an area where pharma companies have patient assistance programs. It can help them work through complicated insurance to get approvals. It helps if there's a financial gap with some financial assistance, or it can also help with patients working with specialty pharmacies on the administration and learning, one, how to store their medication. If they can't administer the medication themselves, connecting them with a nurse or a pharmacist to help them. And so these are big, complicated programs. You tend to work with third parties. And this was an area that I worked with, and they're high cost, complex, and teams going into them, you're always looking for consulting or a consultant or an agency trying to help you. Like when you get into issues, when you're planning or designing, or even training. There was nothing to train my team on how to do this well. And so when I had that opportunity to leave, I'm like, this is the area I'm going to focus on because I know no one's doing it and it's a huge need in the market.
Would you say it's kind of like a bulldozer clearing a path after a storm, something like that? It's clearing the obstacles out of the way so that your client can walk behind you and have an easier path.
Yeah, definitely. And some people might say I'm a bulldozer.
You are a bulldozer, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm one of those people who are pretty direct, action oriented, and I can sometimes see a path that others don't. And so I'm pulling people through the path to say, we can get here. I know you think there's all these obstacles, but I know a way through because I've done it before. Or now we've built a team, and the team, we have a wealth of expertise in our team. They're all veterans and they know they've been through the trenches and now they can lead people through them. So I think your bulldozer, even a tank would be a great analogy as well.
A tank with a blade on it and moving things out of the way. And oh, I
Yeah,
love that.
maybe.
Maybe that's your new logo.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
So have you always been like this? Tell me about a time where maybe you had to be a bulldozer in school or some other organization.
I think I was always like the achiever in it. I played competitive sports. I do martial arts, so I got my black belt. That might be a great one where, that's not an easy thing. And in my early 20s, I, as well as starting my new career, I was working towards getting my black belt. And so that's probably another area where, tenacity, perseverance, and just there's no way through except having to do the hard work.
Wow, I think that's total entrepreneurship, right? Trying to figure out a
Yes.
way when there seems to be no way or there is no way.
Yeah.
Did you go to college?
I
Were
went to
you
university. So I'm up in Canada, so we call
okay?
it university. Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. Were you a good student or average student?
So coming into university, I was a great student. I thought I was going to medical school, and then I had a lot of fun. So I made it through barely, and was thinking of doing an MBA or maybe going back to medical school after. And my parents basically said, "You need to go to work." And so I got a job and started working fairly early. I went to university fairly young. That was probably part of why I had a lot of fun. And, I learned after that through a corporate career, responsibility, importance of balancing both sides, having fun, but also getting the work done, doing your homework. That's been a big one. So even though we're in corporate life, I joke about I get my homework done.
Wow, that's great. You follow through on your commitments.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you learn from getting your black belt?
I think one of the big things I've learned, and it's kind of that, is like the calm through the storm. And it's funny in corporate life, everyone would always be like, you're so calm when there'd be crisis going on. And part of that, I believe, is from the training, learning breathing techniques, even, you spar and everything. I'm not a tall person. I'd spar with anybody. So there might be someone, I'm 5'5", sparring someone who's over 6 feet. And so it's all about, I know my skill and techniques. I know if I don't win, I'll learn from this. So you take the punches as you go and you learn from it. So I think that's what I learned from martial arts. Also the perseverance. Hard training gets you to an amazing level.
Have you seen that happen in your journey as an entrepreneur, going up against some big companies or some battles maybe, and taking on the big clients and just relying on your skills?
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. So I I only compete with myself. I don't worry about competition. Yet at the same time, and everyone asks, like, I have very large clients and I have some of the new starts in the industry. Part of that is not being afraid to go for the big projects, I think. Not being afraid, like, oh, you're a boutique agency of this size, how dare you think that you could work with that client? It's like, well, I used to work at those level of clients. I know how they work and I know I can help them. So it would be wrong for me not to dare and stretch and work with the companies that I know I can help.
Okay. If you were
Yeah.
going to speak to new entrepreneurs, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, one, it's going to be tough work. You're going to get a lot of no's before you get a yes. But when you get that yes, one, it's going to be fun. And two, another yes, and every yes beyond that will get bigger. There'll still be no's along the way, but also to lean on a network because it can be lonely as an entrepreneur. You and I are both in Genius Network.
Hmm.
Having networks of entrepreneurs, I always try to join one where they're people bigger than me so I can learn from them. They've been through the challenges I'm going to meet. And so you can learn beforehand and be prepared. But really having a network, even if it's a local network, there's lots of local networks that you can lean on. And then to be brave. And even if you get five no's, there's a yes coming.
That's great. You seem to know a lot about mindset. What else should we know about mindset from you?
Great question. I think from a mindset standpoint, I talked about breath work too. Sometimes learning to breathe and take a breath. I go a million miles an hour and everyone tells me to slow down and I don't slow down, but I'll stop and take a breath or, I'll stop and pause and then keep going. It may not seem to anyone else that I stopped and paused. And that's one thing too, is from a mindset standpoint, entrepreneurs tend to be quick starts. We go fast. It's important to pause along the way and really pause, look, am I going the right way? Recalibrate and then keep going.
Yeah, Jason Campbell does a great job of
He
teaching
does.
breath work. And one of the things that reminded me of this when I was in when I started at Austin EMS, rather, we had a teams building course and we had you didn't have to, but they wanted you to climb to the top of a telephone pole and then stand there and jump off and ring a bell. And I remember,
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty amazing just to get there. So I stood on top of this telephone pole. I got up there, and the whole pole was shaking so bad. My knees were shaking. And finally, somebody yelled, "Just breathe." And I took a slow, deep breath, and it was amazing. Within about 3 to 5 seconds, my knees stopped shaking, and that whole pole was still. And I think of that often today when I get in a high stress situation or I'm about to go on stage or do something like that. I think just breathe. And even one or two little box breathing things can really calm you and center you.
Yeah, there was even a movie and it's always in my brain and I can't remember the name of it, but there's a pivotal moment and the character says to themselves just before I think they go on stage or something, they go, just breathe. And every time like I need to do that, I have that image in my mind. Jason Campbell's, I actually do his classes quite often. They're for entrepreneurs, especially as you grow, having those kind of practices will have a huge impact.
Hey, real quick, we're building a community of entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs. These are people just like you who want to start or grow their businesses and are ready to take the next step. If that sounds like something you want to be a part of, sign up and join us today. For those of you who don't know Jason Campbell, he's going to be on my podcast and he's a breathwork person and he has a breathing club, I guess you would call it. He says it's kind of like Fight Club. He does no advertising, it's all word of mouth. But when you do it, it's just so centering. It's really relaxing. Nicole, what was one of the most defining moments in your life?
That's a great question. One was getting my black belt because it was a true achievement. Also for being a female and of my age, it's was unusual. My parents weren't like, they were like, yay, you're getting your black belt. They're like, what are you doing and why? So it was a personal journey for myself and something I fought to do and allow myself to do when everyone else was not sure why I was doing it. That would be one of them. Two, really with my business and how it's grown, and building a team, having employees. That's probably one of my most successful things that I'm proud of is not only have I built this company for me, I'm able to support others within it, which is kind of nice. And then I guess the third is I'm also a published author. So, publishing that first book is scary and exciting. Of course, the first one may not be the best one. At the same time, you're sharing your knowledge and hoping that it will have an impact on someone else.
Did you have stress when you launched your first book, as far as like when you finally said, okay, it's going live, it's going on the bookstores, Amazon, you can now buy it on Amazon? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that it was stress because it's like that imposter syndrome. Like, ooh, how dare you do that? Everyone's going to find out, right? And what if they don't like your book? Or what if they're like, well, what do you know? So yeah, it's stressful, especially when you like, I did it through Amazon, so it's self-published. You press the button where it's like it's live. And then it goes and it's on it, so it's exciting. Yet at the same time, you're like, oh, what if someone buys it and reads it? Because it's scary. It's
Yeah,
like putting your soul out there, right?
absolutely. And opening yourself up to feedback, the good and the bad. And
Exactly.
I know I didn't launch a podcast for many, many years because I was afraid of the potential negative feedback. And I think one of the most powerful things I've heard recently is what happens to those people you could have helped if you don't hit record or if you don't publish your book.
It's so true. I also have a podcast that I do with one of my business partners called Real Deal, and we talk about different things going on in healthcare. And I was surprised at the people who listen to it because we think, oh, the industry is going to listen to it, healthcare professionals. I have my husband's aunt who's in her 80s said, I love your podcast. I listen to it all the time. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I love it. Right. And so you have no idea who you're going to impact with it exactly to your say. And finding the time and having a regular practice of it, that's something I have to get better. Ours are more sporadic. We have to get better at doing it. But I totally agree that if we don't do it, we're probably not helping as many people as we should.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should all take our time, talent, and treasure and share our gifts with other people. One of my favorite movies is Catch Me If You Can. And the reason is because
Yeah.
he taught a sociology class at a university. And later, when they arrested him, they said, how did you know to play the role of a professor? And he said, I just had to read 1 to 2 chapters ahead of the students in order to be useful to them. And I think that's
Yes.
so true in life that many of us feel like we need to get some sort of expert badge before we actually start sharing what we know. But it's a complete lie. And it's one of those automatic negative thoughts, right? Those little ants that crawl around in our brain and tell us that we're not enough. We just need to be a little useful, and somebody will find some value in that.
It's so true. A lot of my clients, it's funny because they say, not only do we rely on you for expertise, but almost for, they call me sometimes the therapist. I'm not a therapist, but they're like, when we're going through a really hard day, we know we can talk to you. You're calm, cool, and collected. You make us feel supported because we know you've been through that challenge before, or someone on your team has. And so we feel safe and protected. So exactly like you said, you don't have to be perfect or an expert and know everything, but to make space for someone to help them even get one step further can have huge impact.
Yeah, for a large part of my life, I felt like I had to do it myself. Everything had to be done by me. And I think sometimes school teaches that, maybe other things teach you that, but we don't have to do it ourselves. There's coaches, there have been other people who have been successful ahead of us. And if we just look to those people as a guide or a mentor, they can save us a lot of missteps, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration. You have the ability, you've gone from basically kind of a solo entrepreneur, as I understand it, to building teams. How did you make that transition? What were some of the tools that you used?
Probably one of the biggest tool was a person. I have a business advisor, Gwen Bortno. She's also one of our Genius Network members, and she's truly helped me grow my business in the right way with the right steps. She's helped me identify when I needed a new team member or saying, you have to get ready. You're going to need 5 new team members. So she helped. I would say that was one of the biggest factors in helping me go from solopreneur is having a business advisor slash coach along the way, especially when you get scared and go, I can't hire another person. They're like, you have to. And then you're like, and then as soon as you do, you're like, yes, I needed to do that. I think the other thing is really as you grow, and I mean, I'm an entrepreneur first. I'm not the detail person, but having systems and processes and support for your team. I remember being in corporate life and it's all systems and processes, but that's what made it successful for its employees because then they had the support so they could do their job. if you don't have anything for them, then it makes it hard because they don't know what to do and they want to do the right things. I mean, when you hire someone, they look up to you like, thank you for the job, and they want to make sure they do it right. I'm doing a disservice to my team when I don't support them to be successful.
Was Gwen somebody that you hired, or you just became friends and she was coaching and mentoring you?
I hired her. So I've hired her. She's worked with us for, I think, 4 or almost 5 years. I actually met her through, I did a speaker program, HPS, Heroic Speakers, and we were in a class together. And at that time, I actually didn't know what she did, but a fellow classmate had hired her and we were talking and we're saying, you should talk to Gwen about this. And I'm like, I didn't even know she did that. And then ever since then, we've been working together. I also call her my cornerman. Like she has my corner, but she also will tell me the truth, the hard truth, if I'm not living up to what I should do. Systems and processes is a great example because I can just do it from what's in my brain, but she's like, people can't read your brain. You need to have the system so that your team knows what you're thinking and what your expectations are.
How are you documenting your systems? Can you kind of talk about how that works?
So we've used different online platforms that are already available. And then part of our team, if they identify, we actually use SOPs, work instructions. So an SOP is a standard operating procedure, that sort of thing. So as my team identifies something that they're doing, we start to build a library of ways of working.
What would you say? I want to circle back just to a second for somebody who maybe needs a coach or they need to hire somebody, but they may be worried about the financial ramifications of that. Are they going to get the ROI that they're looking for? What if money's a little tight? Is coaching the right thing, or is it sometimes a waste of money?
I don't think it's ever a waste of money. And I think there's different ways you can do it because some will have an introductory call almost always to make sure it's a great fit. So it's almost like your free coaching session to try someone out. I always say start slow and start low. So try before you go big on a big coaching package, pay $10,000 or something. Like make sure they're the right fit. Test them, get references, always check to make sure you have a good fit. And sometimes someone may help you through one thing, and then when you get to a certain level, they may no longer be the right person and you need to find someone new. So don't feel that the first one that you work with, you have to stay with forever. They might just be there for a part of the journey. I think also there's a lot of online services as well. To your point, like your podcast on YouTube, there's so much on YouTube that you can learn first, but really get to know someone who and think of exactly what you need. So when you're looking for a coach, what do you need and are they the right coach? I talk about Gwen a lot. She has a podcast as well. I think it's called Everyday Effectiveness. And she actually had an episode about do you need a coach, a consultant, or an advisor? And it kind of outlined each of those and why you might need them. I found that helpful to think of like, what do you need and why?
Can you unpack that a little more? A coach, a consultant, or an advisor? What's the
Right.
difference?
And it's funny, we've had this conversation a lot. So I'm a consultant, so I'm more like an advisor. I tell people what to do. So they're looking for me because of my experience to tell them a solution. So that would be like your advisor, your consultant. A coach pulls it out of you. So they'll ask a lot of questions. They're not going to solve it for you. They're going to support you and help you figure it out yourself by a lot of questions, is how I understand coaching was. And then I forget what the third one was.
I think you
Coach.
said coach, consultant, or advisor.
Yeah. So consultant and advisor can be different. A consultant usually has subject matter expertise and they're helping. An
Mhm.
advisor could be a business advisor where they may help you build a business plan or advise you through business growth. So that's where I think they're a little different. And then the third one's a mentor. So a mentor may help you where someone new in their career, new in their business, they're talking to someone more senior. Mentors don't always are a paid thing. So back to your, do I hire a coach? Maybe you get a mentor first because mentorship usually you're not paying for. It's usually,
Mhm.
a relationship with someone you know and that they're helping you through with their experience. So I mentor a lot of young employees, interns, that sort of thing as they're starting off in their career.
What are some of the things that you're coaching and mentoring them on? What are the questions that they have, or do you have a game plan when you go and start meeting with them? Is this structured? Is it spontaneous? Do you invite them for coffee?
So my first book was called Top Talent, How to Hire an Intern. So my experience in corporate was we hire a lot of interns They show up and we're like, oh yeah, we hired you. What are we going to give you? So it's really talking about how to build something. So when you're hiring an intern or student and that sort of thing, you're giving them real work. And through that, it's really building the relationship with them. So sometimes it'll be a coffee, sometimes it'll just be a phone call. I always expect my mentees to come prepared. I'm busy. Don't waste my time. I'll give you the gift of time as long as you give me the gift of being prepared and it's a fruitful conversation. And it is a two-way relationship when you're doing mentoring or anything. So they need to show up as much as you show up.
What kind of things would you have them do to prepare to meet with you?
I'd ask them, let me know what you need help on. They don't have to be over, but like, do you have an issue at work? Are you trying to get a promotion? Are you trying to figure out how to get into a certain company or a type of role? That sort of thing. Those are usually things just so I can know what they're wanted to talk about. And so they're clear as well when they come in that we're not just, hey, how are you doing? How's your day going? It's like, no, you asked for an hour of my time. Let me help you.
Sure. All right.
Hmm.
So I want to go back to the bulldozer or the tank.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing right now. Tell me a little bit. Can you share a case study or something that would help our listeners really kind of understand what your day to day looks like or what it looks like being a client of yours?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I now am at the CEO level, so a lot of my work is running the company, but we've actually been working on case studies, so it's like you knew we were doing this. I'll give you an example. So a lot of what we do, and I always tease my clients going, I hope you never have to hire me for this, but we call it a rescue. And so they may have a big program and something's going sideways in it. They're having staff issues, they're getting patient or doctor complaints of something's not going wrong. So some of it is we help in these programs to help a patient get their medication faster, get through all the paperwork to help them get their insurance, whether it's a public or private insured, to approve it so they don't have to pay for it. And so sometimes, you know, there's just a backlog. Maybe they forecasted they were going to get 10 patients and they got 1,000. And so we'll go in there and help them and go, hey, this is a people problem. You don't have enough people doing this. They're overwhelmed. That's why they're starting to quit because there's just too much work for them. So then we help them redesign the program and still try and keep it sustainable. That's the other problem they may run into is they budgeted $1 million for the program and it's costing 5. And we're like, we have to find 5 million, or we go in and go, oh, we just need to optimize this program. There's some inefficiencies in it and help them through it. So a lot of the time we're either looking at the operational, the people, or the finance side and helping companies get through the issues.
Describe how you would help somebody scale quickly if they had a people problem.
Sometimes we'll see what kind of technology they're using, or we'll see the tech. So sometimes they'll be using clinical staff for very administrative, so high value people. And we'll say, hey, a lot of this is administrative. You already have some administrative people within, their third party. Can we offload some of that work? And then you immediately, one, get faster optimization, you get patients through faster, but you're not raising the price. You're actually taking that clinical person whose real value is helping the patient, unloading administration to a lower level, clerical level, and then they get through that paperwork and it just speeds everything up. That's a very simplistic way, but that's one way we can do it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What if it
Mhm.
was a money issue, a money constraint?
A lot of the time when we come in a money way, we'll look at where all the money's being spent. And so sometimes you'll look at, statements of work, master service agreement, fee schedules, and we'll do a deep dive into like the data side. We'll look at, are the pharmacies putting in the appropriate amounts? Are there duplications? Is there anything going on that's making this program way more expensive? Or we'll turn it around and go, did you have a proper forecast for this compared to it? And maybe we have to go back to the table and redesign your forecast for the reality of what we're seeing. Because sometimes it's a good news story. You thought you're going to help 10 patients and 1,000 showed up. So for the company, it's like, we have to readjust the forecast in the positive thing. Because of course, pharma, it's sales. So that's a good thing. For the
Yeah.
patient, it's good because more patients are getting the medication they may need. And it's just managing that through and identifying why, and then how they're going to get through it.
I think it's very interesting. I had an aha moment listening to you talk about it. It's almost like you're the clinician for clinicians. You're coming in and diagnosing their problems in the business of their healthcare.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, I
That's
joke that I can help the US government with their big, huge budget someday too, and not
Gonna
have to
repl-
fire everybody, if I'm allowed to
I was
say
going to
that.
say, yeah, you're going to come in and replace Elon Musk, especially now that I don't know if you saw the news, not to get political, but apparently he and Trump are having a big falling out, and so he may be out. So, do you want maybe we could get some connections to the White House, and you could be the next big thing?
Well, we do it through data, right? So we don't do it by, I think there's a lot of money play in there that you could probably, with markups and everything, that you wouldn't be touching people's jobs and everything, and you'd improve not only the government budget, but also the patients at the end, because sometimes you have to pay out of pocket, right? Um,
Yeah.
so not to get political or get new business or anything, because that would be a huge project. But the stuff that we do, that's how we do it, is we go into the data and really look for inefficiency and find, I call it the hidden gold.
Speaking of hidden gold, you have something called value-based agreements.
Yes.
You did a talk on this. I was fascinated, and that's one of the reasons we connected on this podcast. So, can you help us understand what a value-based agreement is and how this is so valuable to both the customer and to you?
Yeah, sure. Value-based agreements, they're fun. And it's all about, so a lot of the time, traditional work, especially in consulting, is time for money. We work hourly rates. So I work 10 hours and I get this rate and you get this. Sometimes for clients, we have a big project and they get sticker shock on the price. Sometimes too, they'll want us to do the diagnostic. We do it. We tell them how to fix it. 2 years later, they come back and go, we need your help again. And really it was because we did the diagnostic and not walked them through the implementation. So a value-based agreement is we're doing it through the value that we provide. So we'll do a diagnostic, then they'll walk them through the longer implementation. And through the longer implementation, we get paid for results. So if they get savings, then you get a percentage of the savings. In another example, if someone was more helping someone with in sales or marketing, you might get a percentage of their sales growth. And so it's really value-based because you're getting paid on the value that you're providing, whether you're increasing or providing efficiency. And the best part about it is your client's paying you when they've done really well. So you provided immense value to them and they're paying you for that value. Kind of the model they call it is big head, long tail. So the big head is the project that you do. The long
Mhm.
tail is the long-term engagement. You become a strategic partner with your client and you help them the long way and you get paid the whole way. It provides you long-term income, but you also bring long-term value to your client.
So you're getting paid based on results.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. As an entrepreneur, I think most entrepreneurs want to get paid based on results. So, some of our listeners may be new entrepreneurs who don't understand everything that you just said. Could you give us a hypothetical example of going in and helping? I know you've done some very, very large numbers, but just something so that people can make it more concrete.
Sure. I'll give two examples, one kind of from what we do and then one from your coach analogy, let's say. So from one we do is like, let's say we go into a client to that rescue where something's not going right with their program. So we'll go in and diagnostic and say, this is how you fix it. And we charge them a fee. And then we say, and if you want, we'll help you implement the change in the impact. And so if let's say it's helping them save money. So if we go in and save them, I'll make it up, $5 million, we might get 10% of that back. So we would make $500,000. So you can see if we had an hourly rate, it would take you a long time to make $500,000. This is where you're providing huge value. You saved your client $5 million. It's huge. Your payment is in line with it and still small. And they wouldn't have had that 5 million without you helping them implement it. With the coaches, so maybe a coach is coming in to support a client who's building, an entrepreneur building their business. And that entrepreneur, to your point, they can't afford to pay maybe their rate. So what they might say is, hey, pay me what you can. So if my rate is $10,000 a month, I can only pay $2,500, but I'll give you a small percentage of the growth in my business. And you can put a time limit on it, say a year, 2 years. But that way the coach is all in as well. So they want that entrepreneur to do well because their income is based on their success. It's kind of a neat model because it really makes you want your clients to succeed. It becomes from a transactional model to a value model. So it's not like pay me, here you go, I'm out. It's pay me, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you. And you get paid more and more as they do better and better.
So that's that big headlong tail thing is it's not just a one-time payment. I love that you're walking with them. I see you kind of linking arms, arm in arm. You're walking the path together because some people want it done for them, but you're doing it with them. And that's a huge shift.
Exactly.
Have you
Yeah,
seen
that's a
it?
great way to say it.
Yeah, it's Cameron Harold had a tattoo on the other day. It said, "We're both walking each other home." And I love that line that again, walking arm in arm, we're going to do this together. And at the end, you're going to win. I'm going to win. We're probably going to be great friends. We're going to have a long-term relationship because everybody's benefiting. You're benefiting by helping your client, who your client is probably going to refer you more business. And it's just this kind of never-ending machine of revenue for both of you.
Exactly. And if anything, we want them, they'll do more. They'll be like, can you help us here? Can you help us here? And you really become that partner with them rather than it just being that transaction of you come in, I do a bit of work. Maybe I'll call you later. It's that you're there all the time and supporting them.
What's been your greatest challenge and how did you overcome it?
Some of the biggest challenges, really, I would say imposter syndrome sometimes of like, wow, like you're like, can I do this? Should I do this? Who am I to do this? Right. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, as you grow, it's a bit of that where you're to the whole, am I an expert in everything? Of course not, but I can help people get there. I don't need to be an expert in everything. I need to have knowledge. And then I hire great experts under me to do it, but it's really growing. Just recently, I was at an executive retreat for my company, and it was actually realizing to myself, oh, I'm now at this level, and I was acting like I was like a year ago level, right? And you're like, you're like, no, you have to live here now because that's what your team and your clients expect of you. So I think that's the hardest challenge is almost catching up to your success and realizing it and also learning. And another one of the Genius Network members, Hannah, I remember seeing a video she had, and she's like, oh, when you get to millionaire, you start to have millionaire problems. And that's okay because that's what the type of problems you can now handle, right? And so just because you're successful doesn't mean you have zero problems. You actually have bigger things that come up, and that can be a challenge until you're like, no, I'm at this level. These are the types of things I should expect to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think life is kind of like a video game, and we're at level 27 right now, and we kind of hit a level and we
Yes.
slay the dragon on that level, and it's like now you're at level 28. Here you're going to have new problems.
Yes.
How did you overcome? You mentioned some things, how you overcame the imposter syndrome, but did you ever think about like affirmations? You said you hired a team. What else have you done to conquer that imposter syndrome? Because it's so prevalent. And
Oh,
even
it is.
just getting started sometimes, I know my students, the EMT and paramedic students, the paramedics were about to graduate a class and they just feel like, oh no, I'm an imposter. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I do. Mindsets, like we talked about earlier, is important. Journaling, giving myself goals and stretch goals to almost have myself live in the next step so I'm ready for it, I think is a key part of that. I do meditation every day, so guided meditation, again, to calm the mind, inspire yourself, being in a group of other inspiring people, reading inspirational like work is, I think, part of that is really watching other people and learning from them to inspire you. I think that's a lot of it.
I heard Dr. Benjamin Hardy speak just this week at a conference, and he has
Oh,
a
you're
great book.
lucky.
Yes, he's an amazing guy. And to the listeners, if you have not connected with Dr. Ben Hardy, Dan Sullivan, they have Who Not How, 10X is Easier Than 2X, lots of great books. And he has a new book about scaling. And one of the things that I loved is that the way that we solve the problem is we come from our future self. And so
Exactly.
this morning I was thinking about it. It was like that your future self should pull you up the mountain rather than sitting here looking up the mountain. How do I get up there? You go to that future self, that, 10 million or $100 million image, whatever it is that you have of yourself. And you say, I need you to help me come to the next level. You've been there. You've been to those levels, and some of them very high, as I understand it.
Yeah, and it's true. I love all of those books. Who Not How was one of the key books for me in building my company. Instead of trying to figure out how to do everything, it's figuring out who can actually do it for you. And then 10x one is great too, because we traditionally think more 2x. How do I double my business? How do I double my business? Instead of how to 10x your business, right? That I'm in strategic coach, that mindset. Everything I do is I look at how do I 10x it? Because 2x is hard. That's what everyone thinks. Oh, it's so hard to double my business. Well, 10x, and it sounds crazy, is easier because you think in a totally different way.
Yeah. And I love the example of if you wanted to create, let's say, $100,000 business or $1 million business, there's 1,000 ways to do that, let's say. But the problem is that it's thinking too small. If you say, I want to do a $10 million business, there's usually only one or two ways to do it. And so it makes that filtering out thing so much easier. And then you can look and say, well, how do I do that? And one of the other things that they talk about is decrease your time frame, because when you say, I want to, let's say, make $1 million business in 5 years, and you say, now let's make $1 million business in 2 years or 3 years, pretty soon all of these filtering out that you need to do goes away, and you see the next domino that needs to fall.
Exactly. And for me, the value-based agreements was a key area that we 10x their business, because in the past you would charge, 10,000 or something like that for a one-off diagnostic without any tail after. I save my client, like I said, if I go from 10,000 to 500,000, that's way more than 10x, right? And
Yeah.
you do a couple of those in a year, your company goes boom. So even for a coach, a mentor, any kind of one, even, I mean, I gave examples in my 10-minute talk. I now think that way. And I talk to people and go, that's a value-based agreement. And they're like, what? And I'm like, if you did it this way, you do it this way. And they're just like, oh, had never thought to do something that way.
Are you doing any coaching or mentoring on this concept of value-based agreements? Are you doing more talks or
I'm
monetizing
happy
this?
to do more talks. I haven't. I mean, our other business fills most of my time. Most of the time, it's in conversation with another entrepreneur, and I just, in conversation, will give them the secret, but I haven't yet. Maybe it's the next book.
It could be. I think it should be. Speaking of books, you have Open Loops Journal coming out
Yes.
soon. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's a fun one.
Tell us about that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and that actually started, I was at a meeting and Nick Peterson talked about this open loops process. And I was like, well, I need a worksheet or something to do it. And he's like, well, go make it. And so I did. And so I made a journal. And so there's a 30-day and a 90-day journal. And it's really about getting your busy mind onto paper and allowing your mind time. So at night, you kind of write down everything that's on your mind. So what do you do today? What do you need to do that you know what to do? What do you need to do that you don't know what to do, and what's on your mind? And then you kind of give yourself 3 questions. And when you write it down, you get it out of your head, and then you go to sleep and you're like, don't think about it, just go to sleep. And then in the morning, you journal like what came up and you just start writing. And for me, I've had some like huge insights, impacts for how we do business. Sometimes I'm like, how am I going to do this proposal and make it value based or something? I'll like write it, I call it, I open loop it. It's now a verb. And then the next day it's like, yep, that's how we do it. And I'll message a business partner and they're just like, how did you think of that? I'm like, I didn't. It just came to me through this practice. And so I've had a bunch that I was showing people as beta versions, and everyone's like, I need another one. So we're going to self-publish it. It might end up on Amazon at some point, but we're going to self-publish it just to get it out there and then go from there.
How soon do you think that'll be out?
It'll probably be out in the next week. You just, where I like printed these, we can just turn it on. So it'll be available kind of through like private link if you know us. And then we're hoping in the next year to get it on Amazon.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Mhm.
We'll include a copy of that
Okay.
link in the show notes if that's all right with you.
That was a fun project, that you build something for yourself and then like we were talking earlier, you have to gift it to everybody else because if it works for me, it might help one other person or 100 or more, and I have to give it away for that reason.
Yeah. I had a similar thing happen recently. I love that idea of going kind of within inside yourself and letting your brain solve the problems. And I was at Michael Bernoff's event recently, and he was talking about the unconscious mind and how powerful it is. And the only thing that I could compare it to is Chat GPT. And if you've ever looked at Chat GPT, it pretty much knows all the answers because it's data mined all this stuff, but it gives it to you in a little bite at a time, kind of like the old
Mm.
IBM, or a dot matrix printer. It would just give you to you a little at a time. So I have renamed my unconscious mind to Matt GPT.
I love
And
it.
when we ask the question, so many times we are in this immediacy society, like now, now, now. But if you actually just let your mind mull it over, it'll give you the right answer nearly every time. And so even the other day, my wife and I were having a conversation, and I closed my eyes and I said, I'm not sleeping. I just need a second. And I asked the question, and in about 30 to 35 seconds, the answers came to me, and they were crystal clear and they were different than what I would have immediately said. And so I'm using that pause to find great answers. And you probably have done something similar where you can ask in a journal, what should I do about this? And if you just sit there and it's like the universe, God, whoever you believe in, whatever you believe, downloads whatever the right answer is to you. So that open loops thing is really beneficial.
And I call them downloads because sometimes you'll just get a download, right? And you just start writing, or to you say, if you give yourself a moment to think, it'll come to you. Or the classic is it'll come to you like 5 hours later and you're like, I need to write this down.
Yes. I think it was in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. He described somebody who was sitting there. He might have been describing Thomas Edison. He would sit there in a dark room in a chair and he would have ball bearings in his hands and he had a metal pan on the floor and he would ask the question. He would close his eyes. And then as his hand relaxed, those ball bearings would fall out and they would hit the metal pan and wake him up instantly. And that was when he knew he was relaxed enough. And whatever he thought of at that time, he would start writing out. And almost all of his good ideas came as a result of just asking and then waiting for the answer. So
Hmm.
this is another technique. This is wonderful. I
Yes.
love this.
Yeah. And it's not my technique. I just made it into a journal.
Well, I think that's great. I think your value-based agreements, I think there's some YouTube talks there. I think there's a book there. It's so valuable. I'm surprised that more people aren't using it. So I hope that you can be the catalyst or the lighthouse that shares
Yeah.
that message with more people. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. So Nicole, as we start to wrap up here, what haven't I asked you that I should have asked you about?
I love when you ask questions like that. What have you haven't asked me? I guess what I'm gonna do, like what's my next leap, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's next for you?
One area is I'm gonna expand in my martial arts practice. So I got my first black belt or my second black belt early. And so I did have, I had some injuries along the way, which slows you down. But I found another group that I'm going to start training with in a slightly different style just to fill. So I'm excited about that. And then excited, I'm starting a couple of technology tools for our business. So going from consulting and value-based, bringing in tools that will add even greater value and that like tail from an income standpoint. Again, in gaps that I see in the market, I look for where something is missing and then try and fill the gap. And so I have a technology provider I'm partnering with. So that's kind of my big excitement next. And I've got a couple of patents for that too. So I'm learning the whole IP part of it.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Who would you describe as your ideal client? If somebody's sitting out there and they've loved the podcast and they said, I really want to work with Nicole, but I'm not sure if I'm a right fit for her. Can you kind of describe who's your avatar?
I think my avatar, I mean, a lot of my avatars in the corporate style, but even like a corporate client who's listening to this, it's someone who is open to maybe not doing it the traditional way, being open to one, different solutions to solve a problem, but also different solutions and how you're going to pay someone to do it. So I change up. I'm a bit of a disruptor in my industry, even with this whole value based, because a lot of the time procurement wants you to put it in a certain way. And so it's one, finding the right decision makers. So I want to find someone who's an influencer or decision maker who understands and will be creative. So I would say that is like who my perfect client would be.
Yeah, that makes total sense because some people are very analytical and can't see the creative side of things and just want it in a square box. And you're like, no, we're going to bust the box open and lay down a path
Exactly.
with that.
Bulldoze the box open.
We're going to bulldoze the box and then use it as a brick to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. If people want to know more about you, how can they get in touch with you or follow you, or where can they find you?
So I'm most active on LinkedIn, and you just find me there, I think. And then our podcast, Real Deal Podcast. Those are probably two of the best ways to find me. Yeah.
All right. And finally, if you had to go back and tell your 18-year-old self some great advice, what would you tell her?
I tell her to do her homework, but then I'd be a doctor and not an entrepreneur. So I don't know. I'm kind of happy where I am. The other thing I would say is to be brave and don't take no as the answer. Don't let people hold you back. That would be my biggest thing, to be brave. And when someone says no, don't take it as a no, just take it as a not now, or I need to do it a different way.
Yeah, I love that. Not now. No doesn't mean no. Not now or not right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for your time today. This has been so valuable for me and for our guests, our audience. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it too. This has been
All
fun.
right. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Until next time. Want more? Click below for extra resources in our podcast vault. We have show summaries, action plans, and information about coaching.